Well, I think that as I look down at these candles already, and even in this service, because we have our second service coming up, there's not going to be enough candles on the table because we've all been touched somehow by cancer or illness or people who are suffering and going through things. It's just a reality and part of this life that we walk out and we live on this earth. But I want to remind you of this morning. For each and every one of us in this room, this one thing, if I could get you to go home with it today, this is what I want you to know, that each and every day, someone, somewhere, needs you to notice them. Somebody needs you to notice them. And your responsibility, your job, each and every day, is to figure out how to respond to whatever it is. I don't know what it is. Sometimes it's the simplest of things. It's a smile or a word of encouragement to a stranger. And sometimes it's bigger and it's more significant than that. You know, if you spend very much time around me, certainly if you have this past year within maybe our women's class or in our Bible study, you know that I live my life, especially the things that I am working on in my own life. I live it pretty transparently in front of other people because I need that encouragement in my life that I can also work on the things that I'm trying to work on. And so there's something about me that I've been working on this past year, and it's just that I'm not a very good noticer. I'm just not. My mind is always full of the things that I need to do or the places I need to go or what's wrong with me or the new wrinkle that showed up on my face in the morning. I'm not a great noticer all the time of the things that are around me, especially when our kids were little. This was super true. It's still true now, but when our kids were little, so Kelson, our youngest son, we were at it was a church picnic one time, and he got hit on the hand with a baseball. He was in pre-K. I think it was. He was young, and he came over crying, and his thumb was hurting, and big tears come up, and I looked down at his thumb, and no blood. He's not like panicked. He's just tearful, and so I kiss his little thumb, and I'm like, Kelson, again, patting him on the head. I've learned this lesson the hard way, but we're playing at the park. And send him on his way, and he's fine. Dries up his tears, and he goes off and he plays. And we go about our time, things to do. Church people at the park, we got to talk to people. We're doing this and that, all of the things that are happening around me. Well, it was the next week, and it was a few days later, and I got a call from Kelson's teacher at school. And she was like, Kelson's just really complaining about his thumb, and I just thought that you should know. He's saying that his hand hurts. And I'm like, yeah. He got hit with a baseball at the park on Sunday. He's fine. I'm like the baby of the family, doing whatever he can to get attention. Let's involve the teacher. Let's involve all my friends. Let's, get everybody to feel sorry for me, right? And so when he came home that day, it was that night when we were around the table eating dinner. I noticed with Kelson that he was eating his meal and he was just kind of using his fingers. And his thumb was just kind of hanging to the side. He wasn't really using it. And I'm like, Kelson, what's wrong? He's like, well, my thumb, it hurts. So, well, maybe there's something to this. So the next day we take Kelson to the doctor, and his thumb is fractured. It's broken. They wrap him. They put him in a cast, and he's got this big thing on his hand. And it literally took me 4.5 days to even know that the thing was broken. I'm not a great noticer of things. And sometimes the thing is that we have a responsibility each and every day to show up and to notice the things that are happening around us. I want you to look in your Bible to Luke chapter 13. I'm going to read to you starting in verse 10. And goodness, I love this story so much, but I'm going to look at it from a different perspective than maybe I have in the past. It says this. It says, on the Sabbath day, while Jesus was teaching in the synagogue, he encountered a seriously handicapped woman. He encountered her. She was crippled, and she had been doubled over for 18 years. This woman was sick. It says, when Jesus saw her condition, he called her over and he gently laid his hands on her. And then he said, dear woman, you are free. I release you forever from this crippling spirit. This tells me something right here, that Jesus was in the middle of something that he needed to do. He's teaching in the synagogue. Jesus, when he showed up, he had his own things in his life that he was set out to do, that he needed to do. But in this moment, in the midst of what he's doing, he encountered a woman. It says he saw her. It says he spoke to her. It says he touched her. You know, Jesus was the ultimate noticer for us. When he's going about the things that he needed to do, he noticed Zacchaeus up in a tree. When he notices when he's at the well to get a drink or get some rest, he notices a woman at the well and has a conversation. He noticed when he is just walking through a big crowd, he noticed that power had left his body. When the woman with the issue of blood simply touched his robe, he noticed things. This woman that's in Luke chapter 13 that has been crippled and doubled over in pain for all this time. Jesus, though he was teaching, it says he saw her. He noticed her. But he didn't just do that. He didn't just see and acknowledge somebody that was around them. Yes, Jesus was a noticer, but he also showed us the exact way that we're meant to respond with the things that are around us. He noticed, he touched, he responded to her. You know, it's virtually impossible in today's day and time not to be affected or to know somebody that's been dealing with cancer in their life. And not just cancer, but significant illness, chronic illness, debilitating illness. We've all been touched somehow by that in our life. My grandmother passed away with cancer. My mom, 5 years ago, dealt with cancer in her body and had to fight through it and is good now. My dad has had cancer. The significant people in my life around me have dealt with cancer. You know, I want to show you a few statistics that you might be aware of when it comes to breast cancer specifically, because we're talking about that this month with breast cancer, because it is our month of awareness that that's around, and it affects women and the lives of women so drastically. Do you know 1 in 8 women are going to deal with breast cancer in their life? 1 in 8. That's not very many. That's a significant portion of the women represented in this room. You know, it says that 85% of women who are diagnosed with breast cancer have 0 family history of cancer in their life. 85%. If that's not a cause for rising up and getting yourself to the doctor just to do some prevention and a look at what's going on in your body, that should be our wake-up call right there. 85% have no history. If you do have a history of breast cancer in your family, you're 50% more likely to be affected by it in your own life. But 85% of the women that are diagnosed had no family history at all in their life. In January of 2019, the research showed that 3.1 million women were either battling cancer or have completed treatment for breast cancer in their life. 3.1 million women currently battling or just coming out on the other side of cancer. It's a big deal. Cancer is something that we deal with in this world, and it's not just breast cancer, ovarian cancer, prostate cancer, skin cancer ranks right up there practically with breast cancer in the amount of people that it affects within their life. Any kind of cancer. Do you know what the statistics are for just dealing with some type of cancer in your life? 1 in 2 women, 1 in 2 will be affected by some type of cancer in their life. For men, it's 1 in 3. 1 in 3, 1 in 2. I don't know why men get a pass, get 1 extra. I don't know why my husband's blood pressure this week was better than mine when we did our insurance exam. I don't get it. I'm the one that's out there walking every day. He's just out there not walking. Just not walking with me, right? You know, I want to talk for a minute this morning. First of all, for those of you who are battling that something in your life, some cancer, battling significant illness, battling things within your life that you don't understand. You see, what's hard about those things within our life sometimes is that we simply just don't see it coming. You know, I fell last week when we were on our getaway trip because I was headed for a walk And I fell. So it was crazy to me because one day I'm just this healthy, capable person who goes on a walk all the time. And then the next day, I'm skidding down the pavement. I'm scratched up and bruised up and need assistance to get up off the ground. And I didn't see that coming. It's the same that can be said of cancer or illness in our life. One day, you're just a regular person. You've got regular problems in your life. You're going about your life. And the next day, you are a person who has cancer. And it's hard to understand why your life would be hit with things like that. Just one day, you've got all these pressures and things in life that you're dealing with, and one day you have a significant illness that you know you can't fight on your own. It's gonna take some courage to get through that in your life. Courage is not having the strength to go on. You know what courage is in illness to me? Courage is going on even though you don't have the strength when you're battling things in your life. It's showing up despite the fact that you are battling things in your life. We have people in this church, people in this room that are showing up despite the fact that they have significant things happening in their life. We have Laura Arnold, who is battling breast cancer specifically right now, who shows up and greets at the door, who finds a motivation outside of herself to put a smile on somebody else's face. We have Tammy, who's in here, fighting a significant illness, battling a debilitating illness, rare disease in her life, and shows up to greet other people and to volunteer. And Merle, if he's in here, still showing up, battling cancer within his life and still working around the church, still has a smile or something to share. That is some kind of courage showing up in their life. Not just the strength to go on, but it's going on even when you don't feel like you have the strength to do it. We can learn something from people who are going through significant cancer, significant illness, significant disease in their life about showing up despite the fact that we don't feel like it. You see, when your motivation becomes about meeting a need for somebody else, then you'll find ways for that to happen in your life, and you're going to stop making excuses. Each and every day, we have a responsibility to notice people. We have that responsibility in our life, and it's our job to find a way to respond. Just like Jesus, he was a responder. He didn't just show up and go about the work that he did, but he showed us this beautiful picture of how to show up and respond to the needs that are around us. The truth is that we don't always respond. Let's think of just maybe cancer specifically and somebody who's going through that, and you have someone that you're around, or maybe you see somebody at church, and we make a lot of excuses of why we don't respond sometimes to the things or the needs or the people that we see around us. With cancer, sometimes it's simply that we just don't know what to say. I just think I'm going to say the wrong thing for sure. We had a family that was here several years ago, the McManus family. We didn't know them, but we knew a pastor that was related to them, and these were his kids. And Jennifer had battled and fought and won cancer in her life one time. And then she had a cancer that had returned in her body. They were from North Carolina. And so they were traveling here to Oklahoma to the Cancer Treatment Center. So she was going to be going through some treatment that we only had here in Tulsa. And for the time that they were here, their family had asked that we would just watch over them, pray for them, give them a church home if they needed it. And so I met Jennifer, this sweet woman, 39 years old. She came with her 10-year-old son. Their 14-year-old son stayed home. He was playing baseball, so he'd stayed home with grandparents. But they were here. And I remember being super nervous that we were going to kind of take this family in and think, what am I going to say to her? I don't even at all understand this cancer that's racking her body, and surely I don't know the right thing to say. And I asked her about it, and we had a funny conversation, and we laughed about it because she said, you know what? Okay, so this was back in the time that there was a song on the radio by Chris Tomlin, and it was called I Will Rise. I will rise on eagle's wings before my God, fall on my knees. And it talked about rising up and being someday in the presence of Jesus. And she said, Lisa, I don't really know sometimes exactly what to tell you to say, but I can tell you what not to say. She said, if one more person sends me the song, I will rise, I'm going to rise up and smack him in the face. You know what? Because she's like, yes, I will rise. I know I will rise. You know what? So will you. We're all going to rise up someday before Jesus. But the thing is that I don't really want to rise up right now. I want to be right here with my 10-year-old son, watching him grow and watching him live. You see, I don't need to be reminded that I'm going to be with Jesus someday. I just want to know how much time I've got left and that I've got more time than what I think I do. And I thought, man, that's so true. We don't know as people. We think we're doing the right thing or saying the right thing or being helpful. And sometimes we just don't always know the right thing to say at the right time. You know, I think another excuse that we make is that we see people and we know they're going through something and struggling or with illness, but we see them surrounded with other people. And so we say, you know, they're busy. People are taking care of them already. I'll just reach out to them another time. Or sometimes you muster up the courage to actually reach out to somebody that you know is dealing with something, and maybe you call them on the phone and you've dialed in the number and you're on your cell phone and you hear it ringing, but in your mind you're like, please don't pick up, please don't pick up, please don't pick up. Oh, hello? Because you really don't actually want to have to say anything because you simply don't always know what to say. Okay, I've brought this morning a few things, a few tips that I want to give you guys. A few tips of things maybe not to say. A little bit of don't do this, but try this instead. Okay, so don't say this to somebody who's struggling with illness in their life, a significant thing in their life. And those of you who are in here who find yourself in that place, you can, I can barely see you out there because of the lights, but please nod your head if I'm hitting this on the mark. Okay, don't say this. Well, at least. Don't say, well, at least. I know it sounds like you're trying to point out something that hasn't happened to them yet, but don't say, well, at least you don't have stage 4. You only have stage 3. You know, at least you don't have that. Don't make comparisons. Don't minimize the things that people are going through. We mean it, well-intentioned. Well, at least your child is not struggling with this, even though they're struggling with that. Don't say, well, at least. Don't say this. Don't say, in my long life, I've learned. They're like, oh boy, here we go. Their eyes are rolling and they're like, it's not time for long life lessons in people's life. It's not time to know in your long life all you've learned when I'm just concerned how much life I'm going to have left. That's what I'm concerned about. Another thing that you don't want to say is there anything you need? You know, right there in that moment, this person might be starving, and have not a single pair of clean underwear in their house. But in that moment, you don't know at all what you need, and you can't figure out what to tell people that you need. Don't just ask them, is there anything that you need? Don't say this. Don't say, I've done some research, and don't do that. They've listened to doctors. They've listened to oncologists. They've listened to specialists. They don't also now need to sit here and listen to everything that you have now discovered about what they're going through. Another one that you don't say is, well, when my aunt had cancer, when my aunt dealt with that, when my family member went through that, someone who's struggling with some type of critical illness in their life doesn't want to be taken on your sad journey of what you went through with your family members or loved ones. And another thing that you need to try and not say is, it's going to get better. I promise it's going to get better. Because you can't exactly promise how to make something better for somebody else's life. But I know what we can promise for sure is that there is a God, Almighty, seated on the throne, in his place, perfectly aware and capable of making things better for you. But you cannot guarantee how and what that's going to look like for another person. So let's try this instead. A few things that you can try instead. Instead of saying, is there anything that you need, Be super specific about what you can do for somebody else. Just show up with a specific intention. Use your gifts. Use the way that God works through you to show up for someone. I want to bring you a meal this week. Can I email you about what day is going to work best? When I'm at the grocery store, can I pick up your Walmart order and bring it to your house so that you don't have to get up? This week, can I come over and do some laundry for you? Can I reach out to you and see if Tuesday or Thursday is going to be better? It doesn't matter what it is. I read about one girl that said someone gave me gifts that were totally unrelated to cancer. They were just a present. Send presents to people. Someone else talked about how a friend emailed her funny YouTube clips to watch while she was having chemotherapy. Things unrelated to cancer that would just make them laugh. Be specific. Don't ask somebody what they need. They can't come up with it in the moment when their minds are jumbled. But we can know specifically how God works through us and offer that up. Tell a person that's going through something difficult something that you admire about them. It reminds them for a moment that they're not defined by their illness, but there are things in them to be admired and things that you notice about them. Tell someone something that you admire. Tell someone, I'm so grateful to hear about how you're doing and how your recovery is going. I want you to know that I'm on your team. And you know why? Because when someone is critically ill and you ask them how they're doing, they cannot put it in one sentence. But when you go around them and look to family members and start inquiring about how things are happening in their life, you already know. And then you can tell them, I'm so glad to hear about how things are happening and going in your life. I'm on your team. I'm here with you. I'm thinking about you. I'm praying for you. And the other thing is knowing that when somebody needs to talk, you're ready to listen. Knowing that sometimes the best thing you can offer up is a seat beside them and some silence. It's okay to show up and to shut up and let somebody else talk. You don't have to have all of the right words to say when people around you are going through difficult things in their life. It's not what you have to have. Sometimes it's just offering an encouraging moment that you're there. A touch on their arm, a look straight in their eyes where they know that you're with them, and then you're simply just letting them talk. You guys, they're practical things. They seem so simple, yet we go to the first list because it's what feels more comfortable to us. It just takes a moment to get out of ourselves and think about them instead. You know, in Luke chapter 13, when it talks about Jesus, I love this. I'm going to read it again. On the Sabbath day, while Jesus was teaching in the synagogue, he encountered a seriously handicapped woman. She was crippled. She had been doubled over for 18 years. When Jesus saw her condition, he called her over and he gently laid hands on her. And then he said, "Dear woman, you are free. I release you forever from this crippling spirit." And it says this. It says, instantly she stood straight and she stood tall and was overflowed with glorious praise to God. You know, the truth is that there's going to be sometimes in your life where you're going through things in your life and not one person has noticed. Not one person is showing up and noticing that things are going on in your life. But I'm here to tell you today that no matter what it is that you're facing, that there is a God in heaven. There is Jesus seated right there with him that notices everything about you. And no matter how difficult your circumstance is, no matter what it is that you're facing in your life, he's noticing, and your response is praise to God. I don't know what his timing is. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know in what day. I don't know what your time is to rise any more than I know what my time is a rise that I have left on this earth. But I know one thing for certain. He knows everything that is going on in my life and in yours and in the lives of everybody around you. There is not one thing about your life, your circumstance, your situation, your heartbreak, your family, your pain, anything that he has not noticed in your life. But sometimes the response that he is sending down to this earth are people that he's placed to notice about you, and that person rises up in response to whatever it is. You guys, we have to be noticers this morning. We have to change the way we get up and look at our day, the way we approach it each and every day. God, who do you need me to notice today? It isn't taking a lot of significant time out of your schedule. It doesn't reroute you in totally opposite directions or cause you not to be able to accomplish the many things that you need to do. You can still put dinner on the table. Grubhub will still come to your doorbell if you didn't make it to the grocery store because you had to respond to somebody else in a different way. It's okay. But each and every day, someone somewhere needs you to notice them. And your responsibility is always going to be to respond to whatever it is.